If you're getting into hand tool woodworking, you're probably on the lookout for high-quality, vintage hand tools. Of course, you can go and buy these online, buy them on eBay, and that tends to be expensive. Another thing you can do is buy them in person, at tool meets and from tool dealers. Like, for instance, there's the Midwest Tool Collectors Association, and they've got a bunch of meets every year. My colleague James Wright has that scene totally covered in his videos, and I will link to several of them down in the description. But that's never been my technique for finding tools. I like to go to flea markets and swap meets where tools are there, but they're not the focus. I like to go to antique auto shows, antique tractor shows, and furniture shows, because these are all places where the vendors are going to bring tools with them, but mostly just want to get rid of them. And the prices are going to be rock bottom. Some of these shows are small and local, some of them are huge and national, and you might end up at one of these gigantic national shows with thousands of vendors and millions of items to look at, and look around at the bewildering array of stuff and think, okay, now what? Last week, I spent 3 days at the AACA Vintage Car Show and Swap Meet in Hershey, Pennsylvania. It is the biggest show of its kind worldwide. 10,000 vendor spaces, hundreds of cars, millions of items, and in all the little cracks and crevices, all sorts of fascinating little vintage tools just waiting to get snapped up by a savvy collector. Or somebody who likes to think he's a savvy collector. Now, the problem with a show like this is that almost everything there is car related. And that's not stuff that I'm interested in. But the show is so enormous, there's such a volume of stuff, that there's lots of things that I want to get. And once I'm there, I've got two problems. I've got to find the stuff that I want, and I've got to get it at a good price. As you're walking down the rows at a big show, you need to sort of train yourself to look for the colors that indicate the stuff that you're looking for. I'm looking for brown, gray, and dark red. These are the colors of old tools, wood, and rusty metal. Now, of course, this is a car show that I'm at, so there's a lot of rusty metal. But I find that with experience, I get really good at just picking out really fast which stuff is likely to be tool related and woodworking related, and which stuff is like, old fenders. So here's an example. As I'm scanning through the vendors, I see this one guy, and right out front, he's got old torches, ammo boxes, and this pile of rusty pulleys. And this tells me that he's collecting the sort of stuff that I'm really interested in. And it's not just car related. As I'm moving in, I see an F-clamp, and a little later on, a hand drill, so he's got woodworking stuff. And finally, towards the back, there's a big crate of stuff that's really worth digging through. He's got a couple of wooden Continental planes, a good vintage C-clamp, scrub plane iron, and a lot of other odds and ends that are worth looking through. This guy's got the stuff that I'm looking for, and I was able to pick him out just by sort of looking generally for colors and textures in his merchandise. Another thing that I do is keep my eye out for general collectibles and antiques that are roughly from the era that I'm looking at. So as I'm walking past this guy's stall, I get a feeling based on the stuff that he's got out front. He has old galvanized metal, a hunting decoy, an old telephone. He's got random old stuff, and it's mostly not car related. So this is somebody that I want to look over carefully. As I get in closer, I see he's got this little red mechanics vise, and that's a great sign. He's got tools mixed in with the random collectibles. Towards the back of his space, he's got a lot more old tools. There's wrenches, old hacksaws, and way in the back, out of sight, he has a lovely Jackson dovetail saw. It's in decent condition, and he only wants $20 for it. And as I look around his stall, he's got a bunch more tools. This is another vendor who's got all the sort of stuff that I'm looking for, but you can't tell at a quick glance. What you need to do is keep your eye open for the sort of general collectibles and antiques, and then move in for a closer view. Because this vendor doesn't know you're looking for tools. You've got to do the legwork to find the stuff you're after. Another thing that you want to do is train yourself to look down, on the ground and underneath vendor tables, because that's where guys are putting stuff they don't really care about, like grandpa's old tools that they just want to get rid of. For instance, this vendor has lots of car stuff that I'm not interested in, but on the ground, way in the back of his stall, he's got a really nice box filled with wooden planes. He's got a good 4 plane, a wide rabbet plane, and some molding planes. These are all useful tools if you're in the market and you know the prices are going to be very negotiable. He's showing you that he doesn't care about these tools by putting them on the ground and all the way in the back. If you come with money, this guy's going to make a deal. And of course, sometimes making a deal isn't even necessary. I was walking past one guy's stall very quickly, all car parts, not stuff I was interested in, but I kept my eye down underneath his table, and in amongst all the car stuff, I found these two Stanley No. 4 smoothing planes, and I've still got the price tags on them. They were $1 a piece. No negotiation necessary. I just gave him my money and stuffed these things in my bag. This is a post-war plane, 99% perfect. It just needs a knob. I've got knobs in the parts bin. I can get this thing up and running in 5 minutes. This one is much older and in much worse condition, but for $1, I'll just pull parts off of it and fix other planes. This is a great buy, and I was able to get it from somebody who just didn't care. He just wanted these things out the door. Another thing you can do to find the best tools is just talk to the vendors. Chat with them about what's going on and what they're selling. You might feel intimidated. You might feel like you don't belong at one of these shows, especially if it's your first time. But a lot of these places are big, fun, festive environments. There's all sorts of stuff going on. There's food. People are having a good time. They want to chat. They want to chat about the stuff they're selling. And that can really be to your advantage. When you get somebody talking, they might pull out stuff that you'd never expect. So, for instance, this guy just had a couple of tools out that caught my attention, but as I got talking to him, he yanked out several boxes of user-made tools that had been handcrafted by his own father-in-law decades ago. The guy was a carriage maker or something. I'm not entirely clear on what he did, but these are amazing handmade tools. Whoever did them was really, really good, and a lot of these were tools that I had never seen before. Now, obviously these were prized family heirlooms and his prices on them were really high, so I didn't buy anything, but I got something just as valuable. I got information on what to look for. I see tools here that I might make or that I might want to buy in the future, and before I saw some of them at this show, I didn't even really know they existed. If you're going to find great stuff, first thing you need to know is what you're even looking for in the first place. So learning some stuff from vendors can be even more valuable than buying stuff at a good price. Once you find the stuff that you want to buy, you want to get it at the best possible price. And I've got a couple of good negotiating tips for you. The first thing is be aggressive in your negotiations. For instance, I found this hewing hatchet at one guy's stall. I asked him how much he wanted, and he said he wanted $15 for it. I said, how about $5 instead? He said, sure, no problem. Why was it so easy to negotiate with this dude? Well, I knew he didn't actually want $15 for this because it was sitting in a bucket full of garbage under a table at the back of his stall. This guy was a car parts vendor. He didn't know a hewing hatchet from a helicopter. He just wanted to get rid of this thing and get some money for it. So when I offered him $5, he was happy. We both got what we wanted. Of course, a lot of your negotiations are not going to go so smoothly. But if you and the vendor can't come to an agreement on price, you can usually grease the wheels by buying in bulk or bundling items together. So for instance, let's say you find this amazing old jointer plane. You've just got to have it, but the price is high and the vendor won't come down. Don't get discouraged. Put the tool down and look carefully at all the rest of the vendor's stuff. Try to find some more stuff that you might want to pick up. Even utilitarian tools like these wire nippers or a little pulley for maybe a machine that you've got. Then put all the stuff together and offer the vendor a bulk price on the whole bundle of stuff. The vendor will probably come down. Those guys are there to sell and get stuff out the door. So if you're buying more things, you're going to get a better price. I find this technique almost always works. When prices are too high, another thing you can do is buy in bulk. So for instance, I came past this one vendor and he had a huge box of chisels and he wanted $120 for the whole box. But I didn't want to go for that because a lot of the tools in there were garbage. But when I was looking through, I found these really beautiful Marples Firmer chisels. These are big, heavy-duty chisels meant for chopping mortises. They're made to take a pounding, and they're from when these tools were still made in Sheffield, England. I absolutely had to have them. So I said to the vendor, look, I can't buy this whole box of stuff for $120, but how about I buy a couple of singles? And he said, I really don't want to break them up. So if you want a single chisel out of that box, it's $10. And I was like, ugh, $10 for a single chisel? I'm much too much of a cheapskate for that. But I went looking through the box and I found there was a complete set of 7 chisels in 1/8" increments, and they were in really great shape, so I had to make a deal. Here's what I said to him. Okay, you want $10 per chisel. How about this? I will pay you full price for 5 of them, and you throw in 2 more for free. And he said, oh, that's a great deal, no problem. So, instead of paying $120 for a box of tools and have half of it be garbage, and instead of paying $10 a tool, which is more than I wanted to pay, I did some careful negotiations and I paid about $7 a tool for some really valuable vintage chisels. And the vendor got a good chunk of money, so everybody was happy. There's another kind of vendor that I haven't even mentioned yet, and that's the consumables dealer. So for instance, this guy here has a handful of woodworking tools, but his main business is buying up stuff in bulk, parceling it out into little bits and selling it at shows. So he's got stuff like saw blades, drill bits, files, abrasives, all sorts of stuff, especially sanding belts. He has a huge selection of belts in different grits for pretty much every size machine out there, and his prices are really good. I probably visited a dozen guys like this in the 3 days that I was at the Hershey show, and I bought an enormous amount of stuff from my shop. Abrasives, solvents, lubricants, drill bits, cutting discs, sanding discs, all of that stuff. The prices are better than anywhere you're going to find on the internet. You can handle the goods and you can ask questions. So if you're running a shop, if you do fabrication work, or if you just do a lot of hobby work, these are the best places to stock your shop up on good quality stuff for cheap. And I hope that throughout this video, I've made a good case for why you should go out and check out these shows. It takes a little bit of time and effort, and it's not as easy as sitting around in your underwear and clicking around on the internet buying stuff on eBay, but the experience alone is worth it. You can get a ton of stuff at good prices. You can also talk to people, learn new things, meet people, and honestly, just have fun. I mean, if you're in this hobby, you're probably kind of a nerd. I'm a nerd. I'm an enormous nerd, and I love looking at old stuff. I've gone to shows and not bought a single thing. I swear, nothing. And still had a good time because I got to meet people and see old junk and shoot the breeze with fun, interesting weirdos, basically. So I'd really like to encourage you, even if you've never been to one of these shows before, go give it a shot. Find something close, take half a day, put on some comfortable shoes, and see if it's for you. You might be surprised at how much fun you have and how much good stuff there is. And before I go, I have to mention that videos like this would be impossible for me without the support I get from Patreon. Traveling to a different state, filming on location, coming home, editing and voicing and putting together these videos and putting them out for free, that would never happen without the support that I get from my patrons. If you'd like to be a part of independent, DIY educational videos like these, go over to patreon.com/RexKruger and check out the early access and exclusive content that I have just for my patrons. They're the ones that make all of this happen, and maybe you'd like to be one of them. And even if you wouldn't, it's no problem. I really appreciate just having viewers. Thanks for watching.